but he says they look good on her. He coughs and says he's accustomed to complimenting people on their looks. She glares at him and tells him not to say something flirtatious. He notices she's still wearing her straw shoes, so he tells her to put them away and get slippers from the rack. Suddenly there's a knock on the door, and the takeout man arrives with a bag of food. His sudden appearance startles her, but he quickly assures her not to get nervous. He places the food on the table. Jiang watches him closely, thinking how her cautious side is like a wild cat's. As he unpacks the food, he starts talking. Jiang listens, curious. He shares that her second-in-command once told him a saying, "If someone intends to do something, they're a thief." She can't help but smile at that. She thinks Lei must be a good person. She finishes her meal, and Lei asks if she's done, indicating he wants to talk. Lei begins to explain that because she's from a long time ago, around 1200 years, there might be things she doesn't understand. Jiang nods, and he goes on to say that if she ever wanted to harm him, she'd have a week before anyone would notice. He jokes that she could even hide his body, trying to ease the situation. Then he tells her to put aside her sword for now. He starts talking about TVs and devices, things Jiang has never seen. He takes out his phone and shows her how it works. He tells her she can ask him anything she doesn't understand. Jiang listens, quietly relieved as Lei talks. He mentions how the outside world is complex, peaceful for him, but dangerous for her. Confused, Jiang asks why, and Lei explains that she might hurt people unintentionally and get caught. He shows her an identification card, explaining its importance. Without it, travelling can be difficult. If she's found with a weapon and no ID, she could get in trouble. He tells her that her being from ancient times would cause a sensation if people found out. She wonders if she's like a refugee, but Lei says it's worse. He likens her to a slave without a contract. He shares that he's glad to meet someone like her, even though her situation is perilous. He offers to help her adjust to this new world slowly. Jiang, still uncertain, asks how she can trust him. She mutters about wanting to return home. Lei responds that if she doesn't believe in him, she can forget about it. He emphasizes that he won't be able to help her without her trust. Jiang ponders this for a moment and asks what she should do next. Lei advises her to avoid drawing her sword, as it scares people in this era. She then looks around the room for a bit, her curiosity evident in her eyes. After a moment, she asks where his wife is. Her eyebrows furrow a bit as she adds that it isn't proper for her to be around him if that was the case. He lets out a sigh, his shoulders slumping as he depressingly replies that he is a single dog and is currently unmarried. Her eyes widen in surprise upon hearing that he isn't married, and she stares at him for a moment, clearly taken aback. He lets out another sigh, the weight of his words heavy in the air. He explains that it's normal for a man and a woman to be alone, as long as they don't share the bed. Trying to reassure her, he gestures for her to come with him. He leads her to a room that he uses for storage. With a gentle smile, he tells her that she can live in this room. As Lei starts cleaning up the space, Jiang's curiosity begins to take hold. She can't help but think that this place is quite strange, especially since Lei isn't married even at the age of 20. Despite being a landlord, he seems to live alone. Lei returns with a mattress, assuring her that it's clean and she can use it. He encourages her to get some rest, acknowledging that she might be feeling confused. He reveals that he feels the same way about the situation. With a friendly nod, he leaves the room, bidding her good night. As he walks away, Jiang puts her sword back in its place and sinks into deep thought. Lei, on the other hand, finds himself lost in his own thoughts in the middle of the night while lying in his bed. He replays the events of the day in his mind. He had been on a job interview, but the rain had hindered his return. It was a day that seemed to be a blend of normalcy and misfortune. As the night progresses, he's suddenly jolted awake, realizing he's still in this strange reality. He checks his phone to confirm the time, his heart racing as he processes the reality. Sneaking a glance around, he notices Jiang is already awake. Their eyes meet, and he feels the awkwardness hanging in the air. He clears his throat, attempting to resume their conversation from the previous day, but the words feel foreign on his tongue. He manages to ask if she's hungry, breaking the silence. Jiang's response is soft, admitting that she's only a little hungry. Then a realization dawns on her, and she rushes out of the room. After a brief absence, she returns, presenting him with something. He examines the pieces in his hand, his mind racing with possibilities. Greedily, he wonders if it's gold. However, her next gesture takes him by surprise as she offers him her necklace, suggesting that he could pawn it for more silver. He gently refuses, instructing her to keep the silver pieces. It's then that he notices how out of place she looks in her ancient attire. Determined, he decides to buy her modern clothes and daily necessities. He contemplates taking her shopping, considering the relative lack of police patrols in his area. With a plan in mind, He steps out to begin the shopping expedition. Time seems to pass quickly as he browses through various options. He selects an array of clothes, his eyes falling on a nightdress that catches his attention. His determination doesn't waver even when he reaches the women's underwear section. He knows he has to take the risk, as he can't enter that section alone. An hour later he exits the store, his arms laden with bags of new items for Jiang. As he gazed at the underwear, his face turned red with embarrassment. Deciding to distract himself, he headed to a library. There, he spent $200 on books, wondering if they'd be useful at home later. On his way home, a familiar police officer asked if he'd been shopping. He said yes, brushing off the mention of a mistaken call from yesterday. The officer warned about a thief and asked him to report any sightings. Returning home, he was surprised to find Jiang looking at him fiercely, sword in hand. After giving her food, he reassured her that the era was safe. He explained bringing daily necessities and stared at her, prompting her to question his demeanour. Lei teased her, expecting gratitude, but she was puzzled. She ate quickly, defying his expectations of a demure, ancient girl. The image of her eating differently perplexed him. He offered clothes he thought would fit and a nightdress, which she accepted. Then she picked up a bra, seeking an explanation. Lei stammered, suggesting a video. He clarified it was women's wear, suggesting she learn on her own. Baffled by the clothes, she received 2 books on history and language. He contemplated teaching her computer use. Seeing her yawn, he recommended rest and inquired if she had more questions. She asked his status in this world. He described his education and unemployment in simpler terms. She assumed he was well off. She began reading the books, shedding tears, and asked how to return home. Lei was baffled. He admitted he didn't know how she had ended up here. She shared that she'd gotten lost in the forest while chasing a thief just yesterday. Lost, she spotted a tall building that led her here. Lei advised her to focus on surviving before thinking about returning home. Curious, he inquired about her military rank, but she brushed that off, mentioning her powerful gang. Then Lei got really curious. Could she do special arts or jump from great heights? She pointed at the building, saying she could jump from there without harm. Lei was stunned to realize it was 4 stories high. He asked about martial arts and heavenly mystic techniques, but she was clueless. Mentioning kung fu, Lei begged her to teach him. She agreed, explaining that martial arts accumulate over time. Lei asked if he could skip the basics, but she firmly said no. How long did he need to practice? 3 years, she answered. Lei wondered if he'd have joined the army if he'd stood up for himself. He abandoned that thought and asked about swordsmanship, but she shot it down. He felt downcast and suggested she try her new clothes. With her gone, Lei saw his chance. He grabbed her sword and tried swinging it. It was too heavy, and he grew tired. She returned in new clothes, and Lei praised how well they fit her. He asked her to move around and let her hair down. Lei even promised to buy her a new headband. When her hair was loose, he couldn't help but shed a few tears at how adorable she looked. He was relieved she didn't realize his reaction. Afterward, he showed her a computer and explained its functions. She wondered what he was doing on it. He said he was using the computer and described it in simple terms. Lei asked if reading was challenging for her. She admitted she was slowly getting the hang of it. He encouraged her to take her time, saying he would have struggled too if he were in her shoes. After that, he begins operating the computer again. She then asks if he doesn't have any work. To this, Lei replies that people have to think to make money in this world, and what he's doing is his work. She wonders if he's a businessman, but he says that's not accurate and she'll understand it slowly. Then he asks about her chief's martial arts skills, to which she replies they're very strong. Lei smirks and clicks on a video. The video is about fictional fighting with martial arts. Jiang gets intrigued and starts watching. Lei interrupts and asks how strong her martial arts are compared to the video. He wonders if their martial arts are this strong. Jiang says the techniques in the video look godlike to her. She imagines fighting the men from the movie and gets scared. Then he shows a different video where someone makes a hole in the ground with their palms. She's scared and speechless. She asks if this is the true power of his world. Lei reveals it's fake. She asks if he's telling the truth and whether it's really fake or real. He replies it's fake and they imagine how ancient people would look. He explains, but she can't understand. He says as she gets more acquainted with this world, she'll understand movies and art. He asks if her leader is stronger than people in the movies. She replies only their footwork looks familiar. He asks if anyone can move superhumanly, and she says only her gang's second miss can. But techniques like the god palm are impossible even for her. He thinks and shows another video, asking if she can do something like that, eyes sparkling. She thinks for a second, then imitates what she saw. Lei feels excited. She tells him if he wants to learn, she can show him the training method. As she leaves, Lei falls to his knees, celebrating behind her. She bumps into a ball, seeing Wintermelon staring. She enters her room, confusing the cat. In her room she thinks nobody in this world is without ulterior motives. She believes Lei's goal was to learn martial arts. She cowers in fear, thinking about the movies. She looks above the room, finding it spacious. Drawing her sword, she starts practicing, making noise that makes Lei wonder if she's resting. He was also getting tired, so he decided to take a nap and threw himself on the bed. He thought about how cool it was to have a girl who knew martial arts in the room across from his. Suddenly, a loud noise startled him. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.